Hello and welcome to the Godzilla Gallery, the show where I look through my own Godzilla collection at different figures in different orders. Today's episode isn't going to be about a specific incarnation of a character, but instead a specific mold of a specific incarnation of a character. And if you read the title, you'll immediately know who it is. It's the MonsterArts Burning Godzilla mold. Now, in my own collecting experience, this is actually the most recent version of this figure I picked up. But in the general timeline of MonsterArts figures being released, he is the first one. Before this, there was the Godzilla 94 mold as seen here, which only got one reprint as the Comic-Con Explosion Godzilla. But when it came time for them to do Burning Godzilla, they redid the mold entirely, and that's what they've been using ever since, slowly making tiny modifications. Now, when I acquired this figure, it was in a really odd circumstance. I found it at a comic shop for about $140, which, considering it's an early SH MonsterArts in the box, that's an incredible deal. For years, people have been complaining about SH MonsterArts, saying the quality of the figures have been going down and they're not as good as they used to be. And now in my hands, I had a brand new mint in box SH MonsterArts figure that I never owned before. So I took it as the opportunity to almost go back in time and experience an old MonsterArts for the first time and see if those people really were right. And I'm pretty surprised to say they're mostly right. Now, this isn't a dig on modern SH MonsterArts, they can still make incredible figures. One of my new favorite figures of all time is this guy right here, which only released last year. But there is this special quality the older MonsterArts figures has that makes them feel more premium. Burning Godzilla only comes with 2 accessories and no atomic breath at all. Instead, he just comes with 2 little freezer tanks, which I will go off on a limb and say here, I prefer this kind of MonsterArts accessory any day to an atomic breath piece. This is a small tangent, but I really feel like a lot of MonsterArts atomic breath pieces are pretty needless. There are a couple figures where I feel it's justified, whether it be the first time they've made a Godzilla design, or the 2019 MonsterArts, since I've seen plenty of people display that with its atomic breath piece, or the recent 70th anniversary 54 figure, which on the poster he's firing his atomic breath. All of those make sense, but when it comes to a point that people start complaining that every figure doesn't include an atomic breath piece, I feel as if it's getting a little ridiculous. I very rarely see anyone displaying their MonsterArts figures with the atomic breath or just general breath pieces outside of the ones that I mentioned. Would it be helpful if MonsterArts kept some sort of atomic breath pack in circulation? I mean, probably yeah, but that's not what's happening right now, and I don't think they're ever going to do that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and maybe it'll get fixed eventually, but I'm not too sure. At this point, I'm kind of convinced that Tamashii knows the market for atomic breath pieces, and they hold it back for figures that collectors are going to go out of their way to get because they want the atomic breath piece. Alright, next figure. This is the next version of the mold I have, which is the 1995 Rebirth Godzilla. Now, as far as I know, it's not completely clear what version of Godzilla this is, but it is generally agreed upon this is Godzilla Jr. from the end of Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. Overall, he is a really good figure, and I really do like him. He does a really good job of being a very standard Godzilla figure. If he wasn't getting so expensive, I would recommend him as sort of a base Godzilla figure. If you just want a base SH MonsterArts Godzilla figure, go out and get this one, but he hasn't been in print for years now, and he's getting pretty rare. If the Burning Godzilla we saw before epitomizes the first generation of SH MonsterArts, I feel like this figure epitomizes the second generation of MonsterArts. You can really see how the paint improved over time from these very cartoonishly white spines into these more bone-colored, realistic ones. But you can also feel how the first generation was a lot sharper in detail compared to these, which are a little more soft. This was the first version of this figure I ever got at G-Fest 2018. I think I picked him up for about maybe $80, but I'm not entirely sure. At this point, I'm convinced the box is long gone, and his red breath piece is somewhere. But that kind of comes back to my point from earlier about the atomic breath pieces being needless if I was going to lose that so easily. If they ever make a new variation on this, he will probably completely outclass this thing, and I will say, get that figure instead. In the end, he does not hold up as well as Burning Godzilla in my opinion. He's still a pretty good figure, but when compared to the original Burning Godzilla, he just isn't as good. I feel like losing a lot of the sharpness of the detail of the early MonsterArts figures is a big reason that people don't like the modern ones, even if the paint is more realistic and just better overall. Alright, now it's time for our final figure. This is the Noriyoshi Orai SH MonsterArts Godzilla figure. He's based upon the advanced poster for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Now, I will admit, I mostly got this figure to match with another figure I have, which is right here, the Soul of Chogokin Tamashii Mix Noriyoshi Orai Mechagodzilla poster version, which at a later date I will probably talk about in detail because I love this figure a lot. But he's not important right now. It's all about Godzilla right now. Now, objectively, I would say Burning Godzilla is the best out of these three, but this is probably my favorite of the three. I've always really loved how they painted the spines and how much they pop out from the rest of the figure. And the orange eyes also really pop out from the figure as well. Overall, he works really well as both the Noriyoshi Orai Godzilla and also a resurrected Godzilla from the movie itself. The only real problem I have with this figure is that the color of his body is a little yucky. I feel like that kind of glitteriness that they wanted to give it didn't come off too well, and he looks like he's covered in a dried layer of vomit or something. Or how little the neck got right here compared to how much the chest got right here. And it gives him sort of this sweater look. Overall, they're not huge issues for me, but they do detract from the figure. But he stands out in a really good way, enough to where he's actually been the Godzilla figure that's been on my desk for over 5 years at this point. Also, his joints are extremely stiff compared to the Rebirth Godzilla. Rebirth Godzilla can barely hold his own weight anymore, while this figure is still as stiff as the day I got him. Overall, I think all three of these guys have their pros and cons, and they do a really good job of representing how MonsterArts evolved across the 2010s. This one is probably objectively the best. This one is probably the one you want if you just want a Godzilla figure, and this one's my personal favorite. There are plenty other remolds of this figure that I do not own and I do not plan to own because I feel like 3 is way more than enough already. I would be curious to see them return to the 94 or 95 design at some point and do a new version of this so they can continue to remold this forever, because I don't think they're going to stop making new versions of Heisei Godzilla. But for now, it seems like their focus is on making variations of the earlier Heisei Godzilla from 89 and 91. That's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe below because there is more Godzilla Gallery coming soon. And maybe leave a comment below saying what your favorite variation of this mold was as well. Alright, that's all from me. See ya.